the way I set up my morning, the way that you set up your morning is so incredibly important.
Hello and welcome to the Stroket Podcast. I'm Jenny Townsend, your host. Thank you for joining me. I'm so excited for you to be inspired to live your life fully, to take ownership of your time, your schedule, and your life, but most importantly, learn and grow and develop personally and professionally. Myself and others are going to share life lessons that we've learned through leadership, through heartache, through pain, through struggles, and we'll be sharing some success stories with you as well. Super eager for you to dive in, learn, and grow, and once again, just take ownership of your life today.
Hello, welcome. I'm Jenny Townsend, the host of the Stroket Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Today, my guest is Lauren. She is a therapist and health coach and has been transforming women's minds and bodies for a decade. Her mission is to guide and support women to become the greatest and most fulfilled version of themselves through mindset work, nutrition, and physical fitness. Lauren, thank you so much for being my guest. And you are beautiful, by the way.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here to share your journey, your story, and really just to share some really great tactics with all of our listeners today. If you're tuning in, you're definitely going to be inspired and you're going to have some great takeaways to start implementing into your life today, which is the goal of the Stroket Podcast. So Lauren, so that our listeners can connect with you a little bit more, can you give them a little bit more insight to who you are and what we're going to learn from you today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally from New York, moved my family down to Florida 2 years ago. I have a little one who is 2 years old, a little girl. I kind of say the move was definitely a part of my business and who I am today. So yes, I have been, working with women and transforming lives mentally and physically for a decade. For a very long time, I was an executive director within mental health, and I did that, and that was my passion. And then by night, right, nights and weekends, I rented space in a gym, and I did health, wellness, coaching, brought women to a bodybuilding stage. So for a very long time, I did my two passions, and I knew that I couldn't always do that forever, doing all of these crazy hours. And it was 2 years ago when we had moved that I made the exciting, amazing, incredible decision. I am now going to have a coaching business where I'm blending both mental and physical health.
Well, that's amazing. And we all need someone like you in our life. And as much as we say we want to do things, life gets in the way, kids, jobs, all types of different things. And I know a lot of times we tend to put ourselves last because we're so busy serving and catering to everyone else. And even though we know we need to do it, it's super hard. So I'm excited for you to share that, some of your tactics and motivation with us today. So give us a little bit more as far as who you are. Married, engaged, divorced, children. I know you said you have a daughter. Did you say you were engaged?
Yes,
Okay.
engaged. Been with my incredible partner for, I want to say 4 years now. Yeah, I'm thinking about our engagement. I was very pregnant at the time, but that's a whole nother story for another day. So yeah, we've been together for about 4 years. When I get asked about the wedding, I'm like, it's gonna happen. I always say we had a lot of things to do that we wanted to do, and probably within the next 2 years, it'll happen. Our little one has definitely kept us busy. So it's been a very exciting season of life, that's for sure.
I love it. I love it. Well, we have lots of moms that listen to the podcast as well. So I'm sure they can relate to having children and being busy and once again, not having much of an opportunity to think about themselves. So when it comes to relationships, and I think obviously the most important relationship we have is with ourselves, but when it comes to relationships, understanding the love languages, I think is super important, or personality traits, so that we know how to communicate and engage with others to where they receive praise, love, validation. And I'm sure you are familiar with this, obviously, with working with a lot of different clients as well. So tell me what your experience has been with the love languages and how you incorporate that into your business.
Absolutely. It's really interesting. I'm kind of going to take this on a personal level and then tie this back into the business realm. So much of what I do stems with awareness of self, and then how you can then translate that into other people in your life, other avenues or aspects of your life. So I joke with, my partner, my fiance, because our love languages are very, very different, right? His is physical touch. Mine is more words of affirmation or even quality time. But with that, look at what I just said, right? You need to have that awareness piece before anything else. So like using that and translating that to clients, that is really the sole purpose there, really figuring out who are you? What are your thoughts? How do you feel about them? Your thoughts then become your actions and your behaviors. So really just being rooted in who you are and what you know about yourself, and then being able to move forward.
Right. Yeah, it's super important. And understanding the spouse's love language as well. So when you think of your
Mm-hmm.
spouse's love languages, obviously you said his was personal touch, right?
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
most people are like, when they think of men, they think it's personal touch. My husband
Yeah.
is personal touch too, but it doesn't necessarily mean he wants sex all the time. I mean, he does want sex, but a lot of it is just holding his hand and, hugging him and snuggling with him. Are you finding that your husband or your fiance's personal touch are along those same lines as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely, Jenny. I mean, this morning it was, a crazy morning, and our 2-year-old, he was actually driving her to school, and I had given her hugs. I'm like, Mommy loves you. Have a great day. We always have this little joke, have the best day. And I was like, okay, bye, honey. And I like wave at him, and he like looks at me and he's like, where's my hug? Like that was the look. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Lauren, this is, okay, where you are and where he is, and they're different. So 100%, it's the hug, it's the hand holding.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think as women too, we forget that men do need the same type of love and personal touch that we need and want at times too. It's
Yes.
not just all about sex. So, well, good. I'm glad that you're aware of it. And the social awareness is huge. So, when it comes to stroking yourself, this is, I know, your specialty, and this is really where you're helping women grow. And I'm sure that you have inspired some men to do the same thing. But let's get into what this means to you and how you're incorporating these things, this framework into your life.
Yeah. So we're talking like real tactics here, or kind of like, yeah. Okay. Go. Okay. I was like, which way are we going?
Yeah, well, I want to know, first of all, like, what are some things that you do in the daily basis to basically help with your mindset and help with like your fitness goals and just your strategy? Like, because I know this is what you coach people on, so I kind of want to dive right into it, and then I'll ask you the personal side of it.
Awesome. Sounds great. So I would say, first off, the way I set up my morning, the way that you set up your morning is so incredibly important. I have this conversation with so many people because people come in and are like, I understand the importance. I know I need to ground myself. I don't want to journal for 2 hours every day, right? And I think it is really important to understand like what you have going on, what's going to be best for you isn't going to be best for someone else. Like for me, there are a couple things that like starting my day are non-negotiables. Sometimes it is journaling, sometimes it's not. For me, it is all about remembering who I am. And I say this to clients all the time, especially if you're going through a tough season in your life, whether that be changing a relationship, changing a job, anything, a health issue, whatever, or you have a particular goal that it's hard, waking up every single day and having, I kind of make joke of it, but sometimes in my hardest seasons, I will take out, trophies of different times of like bodybuilding. I will take out photos of like graduations from graduate school, right? Like literally I will have the conversation with clients. What are you going to, as soon as you wake up in the morning, what are you going to see hanging on, your mirror that you see, hanging on the bedpost, wherever that is, that makes you be rooted and anchored into like the powerhouse that you really are. That maybe if you're going through something, you may wake up and you don't feel like that. We want that first thing in the morning. So that's like my biggest non-negotiable, right? If we have journaling, that's great. Other than that, I am a big person on gratitude. Again, some of my mornings, do I like to write it? Absolutely. There's so much power in writing that. Some days it's in the car, taking a deep breath with my child, but just being like, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that, and just naming them. You can't be worried if you're living in gratitude.
Yeah, I think gratitude is another way of just grounding yourself and remembering that life has a lot of beautiful moments and there are a lot of wins, even though they're small. And sometimes we focus on the missed opportunities or the failures, and we forget about all of the things that led us to that and how that journey really serves us. And that's really beautiful too. And I'm huge, like, when we grew up, we always said prayer, like at the dinner table. And that was our time of saying grace and being grateful. And I know a lot of times today we don't get that opportunity to do it. And there's times where I go to bed and I don't, pray, or I don't give gratitude, but I make sure to do it first thing in the morning. I'm telling you, it makes you feel humble and it makes you just feel so grateful, where you put a smile on your face immediately. And I know the mornings that I do that, I approach every situation differently because I've already taken that moment to give gratitude.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Jenny. Absolutely. I mean, it's so interesting. This is something, morning routines, night routines. It's something, it sets the stage, right? For, and I would say every person that I work with, we at least go through this. How much in depth is questionable, but it's interesting that the clients that I work with that maybe have more anxious thinking or negative thought patterns, I have found, it's almost really hard. Like even in coaching sessions, I will say like, okay, when we come in, let's breathe. What are we grateful for? And it's like they get stuck and they have to think of like these grandiose things. And I'm like, no. Let's, like you said, it's the grounding. It's like, I'm thankful that I woke up today. I am thankful that I had food. And it is like every single time the juices then get flowing, right? You're like, okay, now it's this and now it's that. And it comes to you. So I agree
Yeah.
so much.
I feel like it'll start to come to you naturally, and it automatically puts a smile on your face, which is so contagious too. I mean, like when I think about it, I'm like, I might have not woke up in the best mood, or I might not have slept very well because I was thinking about my day and things like that. So then I have a smile on my face. So then I'm approaching my husband with a smile on his face. And then he's smiling back. So he may be feeling the same way, but then now we're smiling together, which is a great way to kick off the day as well. And you talk a lot about mindset and how important that is. So let's break that down, like your philosophy on the mindset, and then basically what the wins are when we're focusing on our mindset.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, especially in the coaching space and, on social media. I feel like understanding what mindset is incredibly important. And I find myself saying this all the time. For me and coaching through a mindset lens is really being able to understand your thoughts, being able to understand then how your thoughts become your emotions, right? And how they are related, and how that in turn then literally turns into behaviors or then habits or lack thereof, right? When we're talking about mindset, again, depending on people, the women that I work with, it's like, are we digging into trauma that has created negative thought patterns, or what I like to say in CBT is cognitive distortions, right? Most of these thought patterns in the mindset realm are what leads women to have self-sabotaging behaviors, and sometimes people come in and may not be aware of this. And again, we have to peel back these onions, peel back the layers. But that's really, that's what mindset is, and that's the work that really, I say, needs to be done, because your mind needs to be in this place where you can understand your emotions, understand your triggers. Then from there, we can then focus on physical health.
Yeah, I think mindset is huge, and just having awareness of it. And I was talking to you on the way to do this podcast, having that right mindset too will allow you to handle curveballs. They'll have, if there's challenges that you're experiencing or people, like I really feel like it all boils down to your mindset and just kind of like your approach on life, and obviously just being happy within yourself too, leads to a lot of positivity versus a lot of negative, and if you have a negative mindset, a lot of negative things are going to happen to you. So were you going to say something?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what's really interesting when the words like positive and negative come up, and people kind of question, like, even, something that I usually work with people is doing what's called thought records, right? Where you're literally getting to, because it's like, what do you mean, Lauren? I'm thinking about my thoughts. Like I'm thinking about my thinking, right? Which is literally what cognitive behavioral therapy is. And it's like, well, how do you do that? And I say, like, we're going to do a thought record. And like in doing that, one, you see events, which then trigger everything else in the whole scenario. But then from there, you also find, something that's like all or nothing thinking, which is oftentimes a huge one that I work with clients. But like, then we go into the thought record, and the ultimate column is like reframing or challenging these thoughts. But before we kind of go there, and the reframe is the part that people are like, oh, well, I make it positive. I'm like, not necessarily, right? But we can circle back to that. The biggest thing I wanted to say here is just doing this, again, goes back to that awareness piece. Just stopping yourself and thinking, oh my gosh, I just got so angry when he told me to move my sneakers, right? Or my child said blank and I wanted to explode. Just having that awareness is what I usually tell clients, like, oh, we're there. Like you're at the awareness that you want to change. That right there is like beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. And when you say thought records, so can you break this down a little bit more for me? So
Yeah.
I have a thought, and then I'm just breaking down how it makes me feel or why it makes me feel. And break this down for me.
Yeah. I would love to. This is my jam. So in CBT, right, there's different columns, and that first column is the event, right? So like the example I just used, it's my child saying blank, or, my spouse telling me to move the sneakers. That would be the event. And typically it's a negative event, something around making a negative emotion. So then from there, you're going to think, what was the automatic thought that came to my mind, right? So if I'm using the child example, maybe the child said, picture day is next week. This is a personal one. My automatic thought was like, I have no time. She needs a great outfit. I have no time, right? Automatic thought that comes into your head. I'm not going into a real psychological example here, but for the sake of learning, then from there, the thought that I'm going to pick up on here in what I just said is, I'm not going to have time. Is that true? Is that not true? Right? So then in the next column, it is your feeling. How does that make you feel? That makes me feel awful. That makes me feel awful that I feel like I might not have time for my child or her pictures or all these different things, right? I'm sad, I'm upset, I'm frustrated. So then in the next column, where is that coming from? In that specific moment, I could pinpoint, wow, Lauren, you're a little overwhelmed right now. Maybe your workload is really high. That's where that's coming from, right? So you see how much awareness you get all from here.
Right.
Then for once you're at that column, you can say, is this something I'm ready to challenge? Is this something I want to dig into further, right? And that last column is where we would reframe or challenge it. And you're challenging I'm not going to have time. I will have the time. I will find the time. I'm not a piece of crap that I maybe labeled myself because I feel so badly that I'm not going to have this time and it's not going to get done. And I'm going to reframe it more. You're having a moment. You obviously realize that you're a little overwhelmed. You're going to find the time and we're going to do X, Y, Z, right? Go to Bloomingdale's, Macy's, I don't know, whatever child store I want to go to. So that is fully moving through the thought record.
So I'm imagining the reactions when I don't have the right mindset, I don't have gratitude, and I'm thinking of like I'm getting angry all day long at these little things.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone wakes up on the wrong side of the bed, or they don't have the right mindset, would you encourage them to maybe just write all this stuff down so that they can just start becoming aware of it, and then they can break it down themselves, or they can call you to break it down? But just building that awareness, it's almost like I'm thinking, some of my friends or myself and my husband, there's like the same struggle every single morning.
Exactly, Jenny. And that's where I really empower women. Like, even if you feel you don't have the tools to get through the entire column, like all of the various columns, just writing down again what those events are, those are essentially your triggers, right? Now, if you just write those down and what those automatic thoughts are, in a span of 3-4 days, you're going to be able to identify, oh my God, all of these things are happening within my relationship. Oh my gosh, all of these things are happening within my work life, right? So again, it's just bringing more awareness into the things that you really want to put your eyes and ears into.
Are you looking to enhance your relationship with yourself? If so, get the Stroket Guide. My book is available on Amazon and on my website. Not only is my book going to help you with your personal journey with yourself, but it's also going to help you with the relationships of other stakeholders in your life. For instance, your spouse or partner, your employer, your employees, your friends, or your family members. And of course, because the title, there is a chapter for your pleasure, which is the last one, in the bedroom. The book offers lots of great tools and resources. There's a lot of great downloads, and it features many of my podcast guests, and they have thousands of downloads and resources that are worth a lot of money. So you're going to want to get my book today. You can buy that on Amazon or on my website, and you can change and take ownership of your life today with one simple click.
And then when you say reframing it, that's figuring out the solution or like fixing the problem, maybe eliminating half the stuff on your calendar or.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So like kind of, a health related goal, back to this kind of all or nothing thinking, something I do with like a weight loss client per se, they would say, my friends were going out to eat. I cannot say no to like the pizza, right? The automatic thought, I don't want to. The automatic thought would be, I'm going to fail. I'm never going to lose weight. It's not going to happen. I can't do this, right? Obviously, the emotions there would be, I'm upset, I'm angry, I'm frustrated. Then where did it come from? And then that last one would be, just because I'm having one piece of pizza, does that mean I'm going to fail? Literally, think about that. Yeah. No, this is your mind going to the catastrophized part, the worst case scenario, where we, again, got that awareness and can reel it all back in. And then literally utilizing self-talk, which is the best thing in the world, say, is that actually the case, right? And you could say it like, no, Lauren, that's not that. That's just my mind going wild, right? Like I have no evidence to really support that right there.
Right. Okay, so you mentioned triggers, and I kind of want to dive into the triggers a little bit more, just because I think we all have triggers depending on if it's something that happened in our childhood, maybe something happened in the marriage, maybe your child has some kind of disability, and maybe the way someone looks at you is like a trigger of like, you have to be on the defensive. And so when you think of triggers or when you're working with clients, what is some good advice or tips that you can give us for managing triggers?
Oh, absolutely. So first off, are we aware of them, right? So that would be, really identifying, again, through utilizing something like a CBT thought record, just writing things down, getting them out on paper. One of the biggest things I'll say to clients is get curious. You are your own private investigator. That's what I usually say, right? So when something happens, understand that a trigger is literally just an open door for you to learn. That's it. And if you kind of mentally reframe that for yourself, instead of like, we almost get mad at ourselves for being bad, right? Like we have the trigger and you're like, oh my God, why am I doing that? Oh, right. And it's like, wait a minute. It's literally just an open door to be like, oh, that bothers me. This is something I should probably look into, and I'm going to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, triggers are so challenging because you know that you have to reset your mind or reframe the situation or look within. And at times you just don't have time or don't want to deal with it, or you don't want to face reality.
Yep.
So
yeah.
It's challenging.
It is. None of this is easy stuff, Jenny. Totally. I usually will say, especially when you're talking about like the time factor, once we're being curious with ourselves and being our own private investigator, right? Like kind of use that analogy and, think of someone who is like on the job investigating something, but maybe they get, 10 other phone calls for something else that's happening, right? That's okay. We don't need to address it, and give yourself that permission that like, you don't need to address it right now. You got curious, way to go. Take some deep breaths. I always say, have a toolkit of things you can do, which is a whole nother thing. But like from there, make a note on your phone and like say to yourself, hey, you know what? Tonight before bedtime routine, I'm going to revisit this. So-and-so made a comment that it hurt me today. It like had that zinger. And you know what? That's actually happened before. I'm going to revisit that. And it's okay that right now is not the right time.
Yeah, I think that's important. When I have triggers from past debacles, I try to always say, okay, focus on the present day, not the past. Like, be grateful for what you have today. Think about the relationship you have today. Like, think of the future. And I think sometimes it's really hard for some individuals to bring themselves out of that negativity or that past memory and move forward. But I know that it works. Like, just, do.
Yep.
But I try to deal with it at the moment. And there's other things I can't deal with at the moment. So I will like reschedule time to like brain dump and like reevaluate them and then think about them. So, but triggers are really, really hard, really hard. But it goes back to what you were saying about like the mindset. And, if you have the right mindset, you can overcome those triggers or whatever that challenge is as well. So you're so knowledgeable about this, and I notice how passionate you are about it as well. So I want to ask you, like, how did you get into coaching this? How did you get the right mindset? I mean, did you just wake up one day and you just had beautiful mindset and you understood all of this?
Yeah, great question, Jenny. So, when I really think back and I think about my story, there's such a big part of my life where I really didn't know, my self-esteem, my self-worth, my self-confidence was really not in a good place, which really correlates with your mindset, right? And there was, huge chunks of my life where I almost let, my physical appearance take so much of my own mind space. Whereas like I looked in the mirror and, I would get really, really upset. I have periods of time when I don't have photos taken of me. And like there was this part of my mind and my brain that was like, you're I want to say a bad bitch, right? That's what I usually say. We can curse on here, right?
Oh, of course. Yes.
So, but I'm like, you have this power within you. It's there, and I would remind myself of like things that I had gotten through, or gone through in my own childhood, a family member having a mental illness and like a divorce and just, things that we call ACEs, in childhood trauma. And I'm like, wow, that you're this powerhouse on the inside, but literally you won't let people take a picture of you. And literally you just badmouth the crap out of yourself when you look in a mirror. I'm like, I am the one who holds me back. Like it is the power of my mind the mind is literally the greatest thing in the whole world that can be your greatest tool, or it literally can hold you back and keep you stuck. And I really thought about this. And that's how I fell in love, with psychology, with mental health. And I really, was like, I'm not holding myself back. Like this is, it's like, you're ridiculous, right? Like you're this powerhouse woman and it's you, like the Taylor Swift song, right? Like it's me, hi,
Yeah.
And, so shortly after that, I mean, I can't remember exactly the times, but I was in graduate school for psychology. I really, I'd gone through an eating disorder. And that was the other thing. It was like, you overcame an eating disorder and you're still like this with these insecurities, right? And I decided, in that time I was going to go and get a graduate degree in mental health and therapy and counseling. And it was very interesting that within that same year, I was like, I want to know everything there is about health, about wellness, about fitness. I always joke, that little did I know 10 years later, I would be, combining both of my passions, really helping women, not only I say like love themselves, but like truly tap into the powerhouse that you are, right? Like turning the things that you've gone through, the pain that you've gone through into that's who you are. And you are so unique and you are so special. So let's harness that. And then all the health stuff that comes, you could do any of that, but you got to know who you are and what you're made of.
Yes. I'm like literally wanting to cry because like you're speaking my language and just you're so right. Like we all tend to think so poorly of ourselves from time to time. And it takes so much commitment to ourselves and positive self-chatter and catering to our minds and like getting out of our own way. I have a lot of friends that want to start their own companies or they want to go and, have this different body or they want to change their life or get divorced or things like that. But they're so afraid and they're letting this fear and they're letting that subconscious mind that's telling them they can't do any of it when in actuality they can.
Yeah.
So it's like, do it. Become the powerhouse. I love that. So if you're listening, do what Lauren is saying and become the powerhouse and the superpower that you have within you. Let them shine. Now, when you talk about fitness and we talk about health and all of that, talk to us a little bit about the gut health, because I know that's something that you're knowledgeable about. And I think that could help too, because does your gut have anything to do with your mind?
Yeah,
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
Okay. Let's break that down.
Yeah, the gut brain axis is so huge. They're intertwined so much so. But the other thing I'll say is so much of our immunity, is within our gut as well. And I think, working within the health space, it's something that I see with women all the time, either, between chronic dieting or just not having a well-balanced diet, how much this affects them. But it kind of goes back to like, again, misinformation between what people should be eating, what I quote should be doing or shouldn't be doing, having this mindset. So many things nowadays really affect our gut. Myself, for example, I went through a major gut healing journey, which I will say, when you're facing chronic illness, you really got to tap into who you are and what you're made of and just have a very, very resilient mindset.
Yeah. When I was going through some challenges, my body would not heal. I had surgery, my body would not heal. And a lot of that had to do with my diet, but it also had to do with my mind. And I was like, I was going to infectious disease doctors. I was going to allergy doctors. I was like, something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And it was all in my mind.
Yeah.
And all of the negativity that was in there as well is so, so powerful. So when you're coaching individuals on their fitness and their health goals, do you have a couple things that you would suggest for those that maybe are thinking that we need to get our health in check immediately or our gut in check?
So the first one I, really start with people, and anyone could start now, would be really get clear in what exactly your goals are. That's like step number one. I utilize SMART goals, which is, you can Google it, right? So just really getting clear on what your goals are, using something like a framework, which is SMART goals. I'm very big with like reaching out to someone at that point and like, are my goals realistic? Is this somewhere that I can really be starting with? I think that's, a really, really good starting point.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think being realistic on your SMART goals. Like, if you're not a early morning riser, schedule your workouts at the end of the day. Don't schedule them first thing in the morning, or if you don't like to run, but you are competitive, do a competitive sport that incorporates running. Like for me, I hate running on the treadmill, but I'll go play tennis and I'll run around all day long. Just finding ways to move your body that works for you and that also has a sense of fun, I think is important too. I love SMART goals. We have SMART goals incorporated in a journal that we use for work, and we use it for our staff and we use it for our clients, and even like in the many habits we've incorporated too, which have you read that book?
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge. I mean, I even told my husband this morning, I was like, I just need to go do 20 minutes. I just need to go work out for 20 minutes.
Exactly, Jenny. And that, that was the other thing I was going to say too. It's like, again, because of so much misinformation and like, I see so-and-so doing X, Y, Z, right? And comparison syndrome, but like, I tell every single person that I work with, like, even if we have these really, really big goals, whether it be get stronger here or, lose X amount or whatever it may be, like the big reach goal is amazing, but like we need to break those down. We need to reverse engineer. And like back to kind of what I was saying before in terms of, this can I get there? Will I get there? Like your mind literally needs to collect that evidence and that data. You know, people may come in and be like, I want to lose 30, 40 pounds. That's a lot, you know, and people kind of get going with the notion and it's like, oh, am I ever going to get there? Right. So like reframing that and really having miniature goals. Like I cannot say this enough. I say to every person, what are the baby steps? Start small. There is nothing negative about starting small. Like I remember when I started a business, right? Like I had these huge goals, but it's like, what am I doing this week? What am I doing next week? Understanding that not only are these baby step goals like important, you gotta have them. If you don't, like I tell people, you're doing water. Start with water this week. If you can do water, the amount that you want for 5 days, that's proof. That's proof to your brain that you can do this.
Right. I love that. I'm starting small with anything and everything. Just get started. Sometimes we procrastinate because we're thinking about the bigger picture.
Yep.
And oh my God, how are we going to do all of it? Just start with something, one thing.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. So I love all of that, what you said. I think it was very motivating. I think it was educational for all of our listeners, but I want to get into the whole spouse, right? How we work together, relationships. And I want to know how you have all this knowledge of obviously stroking yourself. And if you are better for yourself, you can be better for others. So let's talk about our partner and basically that relationship.
Yeah, well, I was kind of internally laughing while you were saying all this. My partner always tells me, he's like, Lauren, I thank you so much. I have become a better communicator because of you. And I'm like, yes, I know, this is great, right? But, I think he really reminds me the importance of managing your emotions, managing your emotions and just understanding, like being okay with taking time, moving away from a situation. I mean, again, when we first moved down to Florida and having a little one, and I decided to start a business, it was a lot of stress. There was a lot of stress involved. And the two of us, it's interesting. Of course, I'll bring it back to like our childhoods, but our kind of defense mechanisms when we were high stress is we would go inward, right? It was like, that's how I handled problems. I didn't want other people's opinions. I didn't want anyone else's help. It was like, Lauren's going to figure this out. I'm going to do this, right? And he happens to be the exact same way. So again, it took us some time, but again, that word, that awareness piece, like, oh, this is what we do in our relationship. When things get hard, and people say when things get hard, you got to come together. And by no fault of either one of us, we were just two ships like going in the night and we weren't going together. And like, that just wasn't going to work, in so many ways that wasn't going to work. So it was really a beautiful thing to notice that. And even in a very kind way, call each other out, and understand like, how can we move forward and how can we change in doing these things? So that was a huge thing within our relationship.
Yeah. And when you talk about the childhood, my husband and I, we have completely different childhood. I come from a divorced family. He comes from a family that's still married. His parents are still married, so 50 years. When I was growing up, my parents showed love because they fed us. We had a roof over our head. It was, we're sending you to a private school. You've got soccer. You have everything you need. That's our love to you. Go to bed. They never read us stories. They never really hugged us and cuddled us. And my husband, oh my God, they tell each other they love each other all the time. It's like hug, 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 a lot of nurturing where I didn't have that. So that was challenging within our relationship. So I think it's important to look at the childhood, and I can see that you're doing that. So how did you guys have different childhoods growing up?
Yeah. So I think we had, there are similarities in the aspects of almost like, the real thing that I want to kind of dip into is not being able to ask or do when you really, really needed it. And so like having an emotional need being fulfilled, whereas my parents, it was different. Like my parents were divorced. My mother was really, really young and she had other things going on and, doing a lot of things of like single mom for a little bit, and Whereas the circumstances or the external, like the thing that he was going through, like his parents were together, they weren't divorced, very, very different dynamic and situation. But yet he had two working parents. So again, loving parents just as mine, but just, he realized at a young age that like, if he wanted to do something, he just decided he was going to do it, So that's what I mean by like different circumstance, but like the underlying was very similar. Like, okay, Frankie, okay, Lauren, if you want something, go inward, do it yourself. Right. And like, it was again, such an eye opener for both of us.
Well, that's amazing. And you guys have always known that about each other and how to navigate it? Or has
No.
this been just because this is how your relationship evolved because things happened, or just learning as you go?
Yeah, no, it was definitely not a known thing. I mean, throughout graduate school for me, we really had to go into a very trauma focused cohort. So I think, in my early 20s, it was all things that I was studying and learning and kind of undoing, right? Like re-hardwiring my brain. And, I think it's so interesting because just when you think you're like moving away from things and you're aware, like when I became a mom, then other things kind of like uncovered. And I'm like, oh, okay, and that really happened for me. And when we had moved, back in New York, I had my entire family and it was a bubble. And when we had moved, I didn't have that anymore. So I was kind of navigating very uncharted territories. And, with the tool set that I have, and then I went on to get certified in IFS, which is parts work, which is an amazing modality. So of course I'm learning this to teach and support others, but I'm like, oh, that's right. Let me go here in my life and let me go there. And from there, one thing I will say, even though my partner and I, when times were stressful, we went into those ships of our night, we would always kind of circle back at some point in time and really communicate. So maybe wouldn't have been in the moment, but we've always done a good job after a certain amount of days to be like, whoa, what's going on here? Right? Like this doesn't feel good. And it was right around that time, when I was continuing to go through kind of unpacking my own traumas and working through them, that we had some pretty heavy conversations of like, hey, I'm acknowledging and noticing this.